Hey, hey, gang. It's been a minute.
Has been a minute.
Oh, man. We are actually trying out a whole new platform for our recording. So if this one ends up being better or worse, we can just blame it on the recording equipment. But, well, guys, welcome. Calvin, I have a question, actually.
All right, let's
Another
hear
one.
it. Let's hear it.
I was watching TikTok yesterday because, you know, I have no life. But
I don't know why. That's usually what I think after every time I'm on TikTok.
every time
Why?
I've done a
Why am I here?
TikTok's not good. Actually, there's some really great content there, but there's also some like really terrible content. It's kind of a mixed bag.
It is a mixed bag. Okay, what's the
And
question?
I watched this. Yeah, so I watched this video, and this guy said, "Is it?" Well, he said, "It's been scientifically proven that women lose a portion of respect for a man after they see them cry for the first time." And I was like, "What? There's no way that's actually a thing." But I looked it up, and sure enough, I mean, it's really debatable, by the way. Like this is up for major debate. But apparently, they've interviewed a lot of women that said, I didn't hate it or I didn't dislike it, but I felt differently about my husband, my boyfriend, this guy after I saw him cry for the first time. Like I didn't see him in the same perspective.
Well, yeah, but was it like a negative perspective? Like they
A
lost
little bit, yeah.
respect?
They were just like
or-
they're like I didn't look at him as much as a man as before.
Huh,
And apparently,
okay.
like a lot of women believe that, and simultaneously, a lot of girls are saying, "Oh yeah, no, I really like when a man cries because it shows he's sensitive. It shows he's this, he's that." But at the same time, they're also saying, "Yeah, but at the same time, I also didn't see him as much as manly of a man as before."
Okay, but do they want a man that's like manly and shows no emotion, or you know what I mean? Like, are they meaning like, oh yeah, he became, or he wasn't as manly? Is that a good thing?
Uh,
Like,
no, I mean, I see what you're saying. Yeah, like it's not necessarily a benefit, but at the same time, I just look at our biology. You know, as human beings, we are so biologically hardwired for, I guess, like a survival instinct, right?
mhm.
Where we have this, men will always pursue women. Like there's a reason that there's a certain female physique that attracts most men. It's because biologically, I mean, this is my belief, but biologically for years and years and years, we've looked at if you have like an hourglass figure, typically it means you're really healthy, which means typically you're going to produce better children or like more healthy children and be able to care for them better. And women, by the same token, have, for all of human history, gravitated towards a certain persona of a man, not because it made a lot of sense, but because biologically it's like if the man's really tough, really strong, he's the leader of the village, etc., my odds of survival go way up. Like, I mean, that's just like bare bone fact for most of human history. If you were married to the chieftain or the leader of the pack or the alpha male, your odds of survival went up significantly because he was likely much stronger, had better resources, etc. So it's kind of funny because I think that's also like leads back to why women like these sometimes really terrible men, is because there's so much biological programming involved with survival instincts. Which I think as a society, we're kind of learning more and more, you know, that's why we have depression, anxiety and stuff, is because of our survival instincts are we're not able to use those the same way. So we're having to kind of evolve past that because we're not always in like daily fear of life. But going all the way back around, it would kind of make sense though, for that reason. Like if we're looking at it from that perspective, like a biological perspective,
Yeah,
that a woman
makes
sees a man
sense.
cry, that would not typically be a sign of like, I don't know. I can see it. I don't agree with it. I don't think that I'm like, I cry in front of so many girls. I'm like, maybe that's the problem with me, right? That's my big issue, is that I cry too much. But at the same time, I can totally see it. But that's kind of crazy though, if you think about it.
That is kind of crazy. Well, if we're coming at it from a biological standpoint, then there's certain things like this where it makes sense that it happens like that. But is it something that we should move past? Because I don't know. I believe in crying. Like if a girl sees me as less manly, then Honestly, in my
For you.
opinion, who cares? Like,
Yeah.
whatever. Like, I don't know. I just know the benefits of crying and releasing emotion and
Yeah.
not holding everything in, and so I don't know. That is
Yeah.
it's a very interesting concept, but
So fundamentally, do you think that it's true though? I mean, it's a very speculative study, by the way. I mean,
okay.
it's very, I couldn't really find too much concrete about it. There was like, oh yeah, we've interviewed X number of women and found that to some degree they admitted that they felt a lower level of not. I think respect wasn't the word. It was like they thought they were like slightly less manly after
Okay.
seeing them cry.
I wonder what
Do you think
kinds
that's
of
true? Or do you think
questions.
that's just like people saying that?
It might be true. I don't know. I might need to do my own little study and ask around.
Yeah, yeah,
Because what kinds of questions were they asking them in this study? That's
right.
studies are funny, man. Studies can
They
be
can be
very
super misleading.
manipulative.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Have you ever? Yeah, you saw a man cry. Did you think of him at all differently in any way the first time you saw him cry? Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, like we
Okay.
said.
Check. Thank you for coming in. Goodbye.
Well, and I mean, I suppose if you frame it to a certain degree, did you see him as all less manly? Like if you don't see a man cry, yeah, like he's tough. And you see him cry and you go, oh man, I guess he's a human too.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because men are kind of monsters, right? Like that's something that has been thrown around a little bit in the sense. I don't mean that in the sense of like we are raging testosterone machines, right? So to see a man cry, that would go, oh, maybe he's not as intense and as aggressive or as whatever as I thought he was. Maybe he also has feelings and he gets hurt, you know. And in our society, that's also shifting, but that's been a thing for a long time. I remember growing up. I mean, I don't think I was ever told this, but I thought there's no way I could let anyone see me cry. That's humiliating, you know. I remember thinking that as a kid. That's embarrassing. Like only girls cry. So it's kind of funny. Of course, as we all know about me, I mean that didn't last very long. I'm a total weenie, but
I don't think I've ever seen you cry.
really,
I don't think so.
actually surprises me.
Just kidding. Yeah, just kidding.
I know for a fact most of the girls that I've dated, I cry more than they do in their relationship. I think they cry more in private. In fact, I cry more around other people than alone. I almost never cry alone. Being around people brings out my emotions. Not ever. I don't remember the last time I ever cried just by myself. It's always like when I'm having a conversation, I start like the emotions start boiling up, and I'm inventing things out. That's when I get all emotional. But, yeah.
So when did
It's
you
kind
start
of funny.
crying?
What was that?
When did you start crying? You said that when you were a kid, you were embarrassed or didn't want to ever see.
I would cry in private. I just thought of it as like a childish thing for a long time. Actually, it's really through. I am so weird, but it was through like study. I learned that crying is good for you, and I was like, oh, I guess I better start crying. And I just like gave myself permission to cry around people, and ever since then, I've just not been too worried about it. I also think that I really got over a lot of identity pieces. Right, I wanted to be a tough guy, and one day I was like, nah, I don't really care. Like people can think that I'm flamboyant if they want to. They can think that I'm this or that. I just don't really care that much.
Yeah.
And since then, I'm like, I don't care if someone sees me cry.
So in your
The same token, like what was that?
oh no, go for it.
But the same token, another funny thing, like I have zero fear. Whatever's in my brain, I think that one of these days, like at some point in my life, I flip the switch in my brain. I do not have nightmares of being seen naked. That doesn't happen to me. Like I just like people are like, what if you got saw naked? Like what if someone saw you naked at one point? I'd be like, it just doesn't matter to me. Like it doesn't even like remotely affect me. So that's always kind of a funny piece as well.
This is not along those lines of seeing you naked, but what are some of the benefits of crying? That you can remember in these studies?
Yeah, no. Like I think there's a whole bunch of. I mean, I think fundamentally it's the release, right? That we, it has a lot to do with our mental health. I think crying is a super healthy thing to do. I know people that set aside time to cry, which sounds kind of weird, but for people that are not naturally inclined towards crying, I think it's really good to occasionally, and I've done this before. Like you turn on I literally have a sad playlist that I purposely go to, like when I need to, like more or less kind of cry, right? And I'll listen to this music and I'll be sad for the sake of being sad. I don't know. It's kind of like a weird thing, but it kind of helps me deal with certain kinds of emotions. Like if I'm feeling blue or melancholy, and I don't really know why, I just go and I try to just get it all out of my system. So I'll go listen to sad music. I'll go watch a movie that makes me cry. I'll go watch the big opening scenes of Up, whatever it takes, right? To it gets you, doesn't it? Every time.
Every time. I don't know what Pixar does, but I feel like every Pixar movie I cry at some point. Coco?
Well, then it led to the creation of the memes that Pixar created a better love story in 5 minutes than Twilight did in 4 books, which I thought was really funny, actually.
That's funny.
Have you seen that?
No, I've never seen that, everywhere. I believe that for sure.
Oh, it's hilarious. Oh. No, I think that's a big part of it. What about for you? I mean, your family culture, I feel like, is super unique, but what was that like for you growing up?
I cried and wasn't really ashamed of it or anything like that. It felt kind of weird, but I also see myself crying more in front of people than in private. I've heard some of the benefits of crying. Have you ever heard that just the concept of going and talking to a tree before?
Yeah, 100%. Definitely done that.
Gotcha.
For those that probably think that we're now absolutely crazy, do you want to explain what that is?
Of course. Yeah. So it's kind of like role playing. I don't know if you've ever role played, but let's say you've got some emotions built up or a tense conversation that's coming up. Instead of going straight into it and getting everything out and just blowing up on somebody, which we all know is not the most beneficial. If you take some time to go and talk to an inanimate object, whatever it may be. And I've heard trees are maybe there's something to the trees, how they're able to they absorb things. I mean, through their leaves and roots and everything, they kind of just absorb. But if you go and spend some time talking to a tree, just getting out emotions, it can help you role play in a way where you start to think, okay, like how would I respond in the situation if somebody said this to me? And I don't know, you just give the tree all of your heart emotions and let it be taken away. So I don't think I'm crazy.
Well, yeah. No, and I think what's the worst thing about altercation and confrontation and conflict and all of this is that we tend to pass emotion from person to person, right? Someone gets in a fight with their boss, they go back and forth and they leave angry. The man goes home to his kids and yells at them, and they go and yell at their friends at school, and like it just keeps on passing on and passing on and passing on. And I've absolutely done that before. Purpose, like, well, I've had, and even just when someone confides in me, if you can go and release that into an inanimate object, like a tree or whatever, or just say it out loud or something, you almost have to like transfer the energy to something else. And then it breaks that chain, which I think a lot of people would probably a little bit confused. I mean, I was raised around this, so this to me is not at all weird, but that was very normal growing up, that you have to be really particular about where you let your emotions flow. And you don't want to pass bad emotions onto other people. And so you have to kind of go release them on your own. So I grew up my whole life doing that. That's what journaling is to me as well, is you can write out your emotions and go burn them or go throw it away or something, because it allows you to completely express out those emotions and then you can leave it. So.
Love that.
Yeah.
How about
definitely interesting. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, I've been thinking about this recently. Just about processing emotions and let's say you want to have a certain conversation, and your emotions are building up and everything like that. And let's say you journal about it, go talk to a tree, get it all out. What does that do? Does that get rid of how you're feeling, and you don't need to have that conversation anymore? Or would you say that it kind of just uh, I don't know, how would the conversation be different?
Yeah. No, I think that's a really solid point. Um, well, let's go like a level deeper actually with this. When I'm having a really serious, I'm kind of a weird personality, and my nature is very fight. I think I'm very much a fighter by nature. I find myself craving confrontation constantly. I don't know why. I guess it's just the way I'm kind of programmed. I like to go head to head with people. My nurture is extremely non-confrontational. My dad is one of the best de-escalators I've ever met in my entire life. I mean, he has such an amazing gift to take people that are hopping mad and bring them down to bring them back down to earth, and then they walk away best friends type of thing. So I'm always at odds of myself that way. And so I've learned the value through watching my family of being very, very careful about escalating situations. And so typically, I mean, this happened actually not too long ago. I went head to head with somebody on something, and it was an issue that was building up. And I found myself so like fired up and ready for a fight that I was like almost shaking, you know? And that happens to me, right? When someone comes at me really hard, I just like my adrenaline surges. And this is probably familiar especially for most men. It's very familiar. Like your adrenaline spikes through the roof and you're getting ready for a fight. Yeah. I mean, obviously not like a fist fight, but you know what I'm talking about, right? You're ready to go head to head, and you know, your ego starts getting involved there. And so what I've done, yeah, exactly. You want to walk away the winner, right? You don't want to be a weenie. So you have to like make sure that you're in the right and you have to defend your point. And I'm sitting there stockpiling all the reasons why I'm right and why he's wrong. And, you know, that's that's what my instincts do every single time. And it's even ridiculous. I wish I could see from a third party perspective how ridiculous some of my arguments sound, because they're without logic. I just want to win. Right. So what I've done in the past that my mom taught me about this actually. And this is where we're going really deep into the hokey belief, but this has worked really well for me. I will go and meditate, sit down, start to regulate my breathing, right? Paying attention to my breathing. And then once I kind of hit a state of flow and balance, I will go to a white room in my mind. And in that white room, I will envision that person being in front of me. So in my mind, it's the two of us standing in a white room together. And I'll walk up to that person and say, "Hey, can I talk to you?" And it's funny. I just have, this always plays out the same way in my mind, but they'll always say, "Yes, you can talk to me." And I will unload all of it. Everything that makes me mad, everything that's hurting me, how I feel. And there's no pride involved. And I'll be like, "Honestly, you made me feel small. You made me feel insignificant. You made me feel like less than a man. You made me this. And I'll go through everything, all the emotions that are inside. And I'll be completely honest with them in that conversation. And I'll be very vulnerable with them. I'll tell them things I normally wouldn't tell people. And I'll say, "Well, it's because of this. When I was 7, this happened. And like, you just triggered all these emotions in me." And I'll say all kinds of stuff. And at the end of it, I will say, "Can you forgive me?" And in my mind's eye, they'll always go, "Yes, I forgive you." Then I say, "Well, I forgive you too." And then I tell them that I love them and I hug them, even people that I don't know that well. And I'll do this thing, especially when something's building up in my mind. It's not like a magic wand, doesn't fix everything, but it really, really helps. And the belief, what I was taught about this was that because we're creatures of vibration, right? This is, again, we're going down a few different levels here, but because we're creatures of vibration, my angry vibration, like when someone's angry in the room, everyone can sense it. You don't have to say anything. You don't have to. It's not even people are like, "Oh, it's body language." It's not body language. You can feel it. When someone's really angry in a room, you can feel the anger. When someone's calm and tranquil, you can feel it. And I believe it even transcends like space. So you could be in a different state. And I think somehow you're like feeling each other. Like you can feel that, almost that anger across. I don't think space is relevant when it comes to that kind of vibration and that energy. Anyways, this is really hokey, but I really believe I've had crazy things happen. People call me and then apologize that I was shocked apologized. In fact, recently this happened. Literally a couple of days ago, this happened. And it was a very different conversation than what I was anticipating. And so that to me has become a very powerful way that I'm able to manage my emotions better is by dealing with all the heavy stuff in a setting that's safe, and then I'll make that phone call. And usually I make it, and usually the first thing I do when I make those phone calls is, hey, honestly, even when I don't think there's almost anything I did wrong, and there's been a few times where I'm like, I do not think I did much wrong here, but I'm like, honestly, I probably did something here to make you feel this way, which led you to do this. And I apologize for anything that I've done. And you start that way, and it's just instant de-escalation. So I don't know. That's kind of my thing. What do you do for your, when you get that build up and stuff, Cal?
Well, that's awesome. Thanks for sharing that. I love the concept of a white room where you, that's kind of the concept of a tree, I guess you could say, just more visual than actually literal. Maybe for somebody who feels weird about going out into their backyard or the forest.
The neighbors are like peeking over the fence. You did this today. Like, oh, all right. That's how rumors are started right there.
Exactly. That's what I heard him talking to this tree. No, I really like that. Yeah, so there's two different options, I guess, for somebody who's maybe not embarrassed or thinks that it would be more beneficial to go out and actually speak and get things out than a tree or some inanimate object before talking to a person is very beneficial, or doing it like that in your mind's eye, where it's just you and them, a white room, and then you forgive them, and that's really cool.
Yeah.
Did they ever say anything back to you?
Funny enough, sometimes, yeah. And it's like one of those things that you have no idea. You're like, I'm probably just making this up. But you have to wonder. Because I've had people say, listen, you don't know what I'm going through. And I was like, oh. And whether that was my own mind creating that or there was something else I was picking up on, I'm a pretty empathic person. Mm-hmm. But that's what's crazy too. That's another thing. I mean, yeah, if you ever want to stop hating somebody, I had a friend do this because he really didn't like Bill Clinton. When he was president, he said, I would get so angry every time I saw him on TV, every time I heard his voice. He said, I just get like, it was just like filling with rage. He said, I hated his policies. I hated the whole scandal. He said, I just got so angry every time I saw him. And then one day he said that, he serendipitously, I think maybe serendipitously or something happened. And he said, I pictured him crying in the corner, like holding himself and crying and sobbing. And he said it just completely changed his energy. He said, I just 100%, like I just almost forgave him on the spot because I realized no matter how evil or wrong or maniacal or whatever anybody is, all of us take turns being the guy crying in the corner or the girl crying in the corner. Like everybody does. And I actually said to someone about Trump because, you know, that if you want to talk about a polarizing person, people either love him or hate him typically. And people get so angry just seeing his face. And I'm like, yeah, but at the same time, everybody takes a turn crying in the corner and feeling alone and afraid and lost. And sure, that doesn't mean that what they, you know, whoever it is, doesn't mean that what they're doing is okay, but you have to wonder sometimes, is this person just sitting there crying in the corner? Totally. But they hide it under a lot of bravado and a lot of arrogance sometimes and whatever else. So,
yeah, I mean, you kind of said it right there, but that's what I was thinking as far as what I do to de-escalate or to have conversations like that, to just think like, all right, no idea what is going on in this person's head, no idea what things this has triggered or like where they're at in their family life and their financial life and their, you know, everything. You just have to kind of take everything into consideration and realize that we just don't know. We don't know what somebody else is going through, and when they react in a certain way, or something that they do or you do makes you upset. Just remembering that we really have no idea. So I 100%. I like the concept of treating somebody or treating everybody as if something very wrong is going on in their life, and usually you'll be right.
Yeah, that's such a solid point. I love it. I love that sentiment because, I mean, what percentage of your daily living do you actually go, man, things are just awesome. Like everything's going great. There's no problems. I mean, that's That is the really rare times. I mean, maybe,
very small
I don't know, maybe
percentage.
everyone else is more successful than I am, but I feel like I am 10 to 20%, maybe, where I'm like, man, things are just amazing right now. Like my life could not be any better. Usually there's something. There's something weighing you down. There's something you're thinking about, something that's stressing you out. It could be yourself or a family member or a loved one, but there's something. I love that sentiment as well.
This new software. I don't know if there's a timer on here or anything. I
There
completely
is.
forgot. Is there? Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah, that is quite the thing. Okay, so do you find? Well, actually, I want to tell a story and then
We
preface
love
this.
story
So,
time. We love story time.
story time coming up. So this one time, I am at a. It was a tactical shooting course, so largely focused on tactics, small unit, infantry tactics. The guy that was training us was ex-British Special Forces. I mean, it was like the real deal as far as the level of quality we were getting.
Wow.
I think I was the youngest one in the bunch, and it was a really fun course, by the way. I mean, very physically exhausting, extremely mentally exhausting, which doesn't sound that way, but I mean, it's weird how just even the sound of that firing, like it was filling up the entire area. And it was kind of crazy. But at one point, I made a very critical error that no one would have gotten hurt, but I definitely broke a big rule. And it was, without going too much detail on how it happened, it was a pretty innocent mistake. It kind of got landed on me. Like, had someone else been in the same spot that I was in, they would have probably made the same mistake. Anyways, the instructor, who was a very, I mean, this guy, I made my memories all jacked up, but I'll bet he was 6'4", 6'5", 250 to 280 pounds. He was a big boy, right? Mm-hmm. Ex-military. He's been 3 different tours in Iraq as a few different as a contractor. I mean, this guy is lethal, right? And and I'm sitting there and I've got my rifle up, and someone moved into my lane of fire. And I was like, sat there and froze, because during the drills, it's very serious. Like, you have to, like, you keep the pace type of thing. And I'm sitting there and I was hesitating. I'm like, I can't, like, I kind of like started pointing my gun down. And all of a sudden I get just slammed from behind. Right. And the guy pushed me down to, like, shove my rifle down to the ground. Right. So that I didn't pull a trigger and kill somebody. He didn't know that I even saw the guy. Anyways, long story short, regardless of how it happened, it was, I kid you not, picked me up by my lapels and was like nose to nose screaming at me in my face. I don't remember what he said. Dang near wet my pants, like scared to death, right? This guy is huge. I was like, this guy's probably gonna kill me. Like, my initial instinct was like, I need to get ready to fight for my life. Like, seriously, I don't know why. I mean, obviously this guy wasn't going to, but in my fight or flight kicked in so hard, and I was like, I am going to die right now. And I'm sitting there being like ragdolled by this giant guy, and he's got like spit flying in my face and just screaming at me. I mean, and this has never happened. And for those that don't know my father, I think my dad yelled at me one time, and I absolutely deserved it. And yelling was like, he like raised his voice at me. My dad does not yell at people. It's just not his way. My mom rarely. And so, like, my upbringing, I'm such a softie when it comes to people actually screaming at me. That's never happened before. It was the first time in my life I'd ever had someone actually go nose to nose with me and scream in my face. And on top of that, someone that I respected. And I seriously, like, shut down, like, just couldn't say anything. Words wouldn't come out. And I just walked away after that. I sat down and I had to meditate for like an hour. And I was so angry and I was like freaking out. My head was just like exploding with all these different emotions. And that was one that I've like, I look back and I still get like almost anxiety when I think back to it, because it was it was like a traumatic thing for me. I'm curious, and this is an extreme example, but how do you deal with that kind of emotion? Like, I mean, we've talked about forgiving people and other stuff, but how do you release all of that? I mean, when people come at you so angry and with all this rage and stuff, how do you, I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on that, Kel?
Initially, I'll go to the gym and just grab the bench bar and just pound that sucker.
What do we do with our feelings? We hide them in our muscles. Then how do we deal with our feelings better? We get bigger muscles. That's kind of true. Uh,
Oh my gosh. What is that from? Is that from
I
something?
think that's like some Vine or TikTok or something. It's so funny. There's so many, like, there's so many, redos on that one, but that's pretty funny.
Oh man. And for something like that, I mean, that's pretty intense. I mean, you probably felt guilty for maybe doing something wrong. What's up?
Oh, we're about time, but anyways, finish up your thought.
Gotcha. Probably felt guilty for having messed up and kind of beating yourself up, and then on top of that, you've got this guy yelling at you, saying like, "What were you thinking?" Like, and I mean, you know that you're not an inconsiderate human being. You know that it was an innocent mistake, and so I think
Right.
Realizing that, just realizing the situation. I mean, taking time to process the emotion and everything like that, and go to the gym, get some anger out, but at the same time, remembering that you weren't trying to do anything wrong. You weren't. It was an honest mistake, and so those kinds of emotions can kind of pass and just go.
Yeah.
But it definitely affects you for sure.
Yeah. Well, and we are about time, but I do think this is probably a good subject for another podcast here another day. But learning how to step outside of your emotional experience, like, separate your, try to go to a third person perspective and see yourself like that. What you just said, it kind of triggered that. I think that's something as well that'd be kind of cool to dive into, because that's been helpful in a lot of scenarios. So, well, guys, I think that's about a wrap for today. Hope this has been meaningful, or at least semi-meaningful, and we will see you on the next episode.
Sweet. See ya.